So I thought it might be fun to do a video to help people understand the process and the tools that we use when we're going to plan a camping trip. And that might help them.
Yep.
And I thought it might be good to start this video by explaining how relationship dynamics are really important when you're going to do a trip plan like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So I'm curious, how would you describe historically how this works?
Well, you suggest maybe we should go to the moon for 3 months, and then I kind of dial it back a little bit and say, well, why don't we go somewhere different, maybe for not quite as long.
Yeah. Yeah, so that pretty much, that really captures the moment for me, because it's true, I generally come up with this maybe crazy idea.
Well, it usually starts with you saying, oh, I've got an idea, and then I just kind of say, okay, let's see what it is.
That's not true.
Well, maybe I don't say it out loud.
Yeah, no, the way it used to go is I would say, hey, let's do this amazing trip. We're gonna go cross country. We'll spend 3 months. I'll work remote. We gotta figure out some stuff. And then you immediately come in with this barrage of reasons why that's not gonna work. Barrage, yeah.
Okay.
That's, to me, that's how it used historically. Yeah, no, that's not how it works. So I'm betting that some of this dynamic is playing out when you guys plan your trips. And it was pretty, just not pleasant the way that this used to go down. But I had a bit of an epiphany a couple of years ago, and I think it's really made a big difference and improved the way that we go through this process. So it starts by acknowledging that I like change with a little bit of stability. And guess what?
You can say it.
He likes stability with a little bit of change. And that's just the fundamental truth of our personalities. Understanding that up front, I think, has made a huge difference, because I know when I suggest something, his reaction is just, it's innate. It's who he is. He's immediately going to be like, I totally don't want to do that. It's too much. And I think you've recognized that you kind of put cold water on something too quickly. And so you don't always verbalize it the way you used to. And so you kind of you hold back a little bit. And
we find a happy compromise.
We do. We compromise. We figure out the trip that makes sense for us. Yeah. So I think that's really key. If you guys have the same kind of dynamic that we have, which is change with a little stability with a little bit of change, maybe recognizing that up front will help you not want to kill each other during the planning process. Right? Okay, so he's going to exit stage left. I was going to say Snagglepuss, but that's a really old cartoon. I think I just dated myself. Do you know who Snagglepuss is?
Yeah, that guy with the tiger with the funny tooth, maybe.
Yeah.
I know.
Exit stage left.
Okay.
And then I'm going to talk to people about the process and the tools.
Sounds good.
And maybe I'll let you back in.
I'm going to make you a coffee.
Ooh. This is a good compromise.
That way.
Thanks. All right, he just exited stage left. So let me explain to you, maybe just using this current trip. So it's December in Providence, Rhode Island. We've had the Happier Camper Traveler for about, I guess it's a month now. And we can't go anywhere because, well, it's not that we can't go anywhere, but camping in New England in the winter is just not an awesome experience for people like us who like comfort. And we travel with 2 dogs. So there's just a logistical consideration whenever we're traveling or planning a trip. So I had an idea, which is let's this spring get south as fast as we can, and let's do the American Southwest. And so that's kind of like the germ of the idea that I started with. And the first thing I do is I create an Apple Note. So I don't know if you guys are Apple users. I am a hardcore Apple user, and the Notes app has replaced Evernote for me. It's really, really good. And so the first thing I do is I open up, create a note, which is actually a folder. And in the folder, I put an itinerary note. And that's where I start putting down my ideas. I immediately share it with Michael. And that gives him an opportunity to start reviewing and reacting to what I've put down without doing it to my face, which is really important because he needs to go through his process of dumping cold water on it. But I don't need to be present for that. there's a lot more relationship harmony as a result of that. And then the next thing I do is I go to roadtrippers.com. Now, I have a premium membership with them. I don't know how much it is. I want to say it's like $40 a year or something. But that's where I create the trip and I just put in my start and end points. And, you know, this kind of a trip is a little bit challenging because the plan that I started working out in my head was, well, let's take a 2-week vacation. But it always feels rushed to try to get back to Providence so I can start work on the Monday. So we're lucky enough to have a place in New Orleans where we can stay. So the plan is we'll leave Providence, we'll head south, we'll do a 2-week vacation in the Southwest, and then we'll come back to New Orleans at the end of the 2 weeks. I'll work remote for that week from New Orleans, and then on the weekend, we'll drive back home. And we've done that trip a bunch of times. We know that we can do 2 really long days. They're probably 12 to 14 hours because we travel with dogs and particularly now pulling a camper. But it's doable. So that's the plan, and that's what I started in Road Trippers. So Road Trippers has a bunch of filters, which lets you look at points of interest, places to camp. So I start looking for just cool, interesting things to do and see. I have a real interest in seeing the petroglyphs in Arizona and New Mexico and connecting with some of the native cultures that are, you know, thousands of years old that are represented across that landscape. So I start doing some research, just web browses of great places to visit in those states that, you know, might have locations that would be interesting to go and see. You know, Mike and I talk about the fact that when we camp, they're more like history trips for us in a way. I mean, yes, we want to be outdoors, we want to have camping experiences, but we want to be in places where we can feel like we understand the history of the place. So we do a lot of research to try to find those locations on the trip. And I start bouncing back and forth between Road Trippers and the Note. And then I'll open up my calendar app and I'll just theoretically throw out some dates when this might happen. That gives me a sense of not just place, but now time. And then when I've kind of framed out those things, I start looking at high and low temperature averages for those locations. Because again, we like comfort, and you know, I don't want to do a lot of cold weather camping, but if you're gonna be in the American Southwest in March and April, the nights are gonna be cold. So you need to be prepared for that. Yeah, and so at that point, I've now got a theoretical time frame. I've understand like what kind of camping that might be, how much time do we want to spend in the south versus the north. I think my goal of being in Zion National Park is probably not realistic for this trip. We could push it out later in the year, but even so, that's going to be a longer drive, I think, than if we want to keep those 5 to 8 hour days of driving. And that's what I start doing with Road Trippers. I start looking for places that hit that 5 hour mark, that are way spots, places to stay along the way for those major historical locations that we want to stay in. I then open up Harvest Hosts and I start looking for, are there any farms, any wineries, anything interesting along that pathway that might be another place to stay? Because our preference is state and national parks, then wineries, farms. We'll also open up another couple of apps. I'll open up Hip Camp. I'll open up boondockerswelcome.com. And that's where we start to try to fill in the blanks. And I usually will plan for a midweek stay in a hotel, just because it's nice to have a hot shower with a comfortable bed and to, just have that opportunity to have a little bit of a creature comfort along the way. And so that's primarily how we're doing our trip. So we haven't settled on the full itinerary yet. Once we get that done, I will plan to do another video and kind of walk you through what we're landing on. But this will kind of help you see this it's like peeling back an onion. Like, how do we get from, I have a crazy idea, he's gonna pour cold water on it, to a trip that feels well planned and well thought out that we both can agree to. I'll let you know when we're done. Oh yeah, I wanted to mention that I'm going to try some other apps on this trip that I don't normally use, because most of our camping's on the East Coast. We don't have a lot of BLM land here, so I'm going to be trying a couple things. Freecampsites.net. I'm going to use Google Earth to try to kind of zero in on some of the locations that I think might be good for boondocking. I'm going to use the US Public Lands app. Yeah, so this one's actually going to be kind of exciting for me anyway from a planning perspective, because I have some different options available to us that we wouldn't normally have. So it's going to be fun. You're going to help me plan? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Thank you for your help. Number one helper.